the Profitable Coaches Summit. Remember, this summit has been created to give coaches like you a ton of great information and loads of helpful resources, advice, and of course, encouragement. Remember, as always, I want to challenge you to find at least one takeaway that you would like to try out at some point. And if you go one better, come on over into the group and let me know what that takeaway is and when you plan to have it done, and we can help you with the accountability. So I'm your host, Liz Block, and today I've got with me Rebecca Satori. Hey, Rebecca, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here with everyone.
Yeah, I can't wait. We're going to be talking about magnetizing money miracles in your life and business, which I think is going to be a super fun conversation. But before we dig in, let me tell everybody a little bit more about you. So Rebecca Satori is an intuitive business coach, published author, and accomplished speaker who supports passionate, high-achieving entrepreneurs in eliminating the patterns and subconscious beliefs that hold them back so they can break through to their next level of success. Rebecca takes a fierce, laser-focused approach to help business owners grow 6 to 7 plus figure businesses and live lives they love, because she believes that when you are financially empowered, the world changes for the better. Rebecca is a proud mother of 2 amazing young men and is committed to rocking her life out in every area and living to her highest potential. And I can tell you all, that is never a truer statement than that one for Rebecca. So welcome. So before we dig in, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about you, your story, and how you became Rebecca Satori Consulting?
Awesome. Well, again, it's so lovely to be here and lovely to be with you again, of course. So I started my business back in 2010, which is something that I pride myself on after having been in the coaching industry for the past 13 years. And it really came out of just my life. Everything about my life was, I would say, quite in the toilet. And so, I was in a lot of debt. My marriage was headed in the wrong direction. My sons at the time were 3 and 6. And I decided to go to a workshop, and the woman was teaching people how to turn their life purpose into a business. And I thought, well, this is cheaper than a master's degree. I'm in. So here I am 13 years later. It was clearly the right direction to take my life in, and also to take a leap of faith. There's a lot of times as women and as entrepreneurs that we need to take leaps of faith. And I would say a lot of my entrepreneurial journey has been marked dramatically by taking leaps of faith. I took another leap of faith in 2013 and applied to be an apprentice in an international coaching academy for a woman, and created the content and the curriculum for that international coaching academy, and was flown to Paris. And then, fast forward to that time, which was a very pivotal time in my life. I was going through an unexpected but also welcome divorce, and a very scary time for me in my life as well. And one of my very first, I would say, drastic times of magnetizing financial abundance into my business and into my life at that time, because I had never been financially independent before. And I had never even lived alone before. I went and commuted to college. And so I don't even think I think I was living alone for like a year. I mean, of course, I'm living with my children, but yes. You get what I'm saying. Yes. And I was like, wait a minute, I've never even really lived alone before. I mean, I moved out of my parents' house and bought a townhouse when I was 21 with my kid's dad. And that year I catapulted my income into 6 figures, made $173,000, and was traveling every 90 days around the globe, helping to run these international coaching events. And as all entrepreneurial journeys are, it is not a trajectory like this. It is up, down, all around. There have been times, even, to date, where less money has come in, but it's always about setting yourself up with a solid foundation and having your own money in the bank. And I learned that the hard way through 2 relationships that succeeded because they ended. And I would like to change everyone's mind about that, because when women go through relationships that end in divorce or what have you, people think, they're like, we're so conditioned to say, I'm so sorry. Yes. When in fact, both of the endings of my relationships were in many ways celebrations, and freed me to go on and become a greater version of myself, because they were soul contracts that ended and they were complete. And so that's something to celebrate. Yes. And so here I am at 47 years old. My business is 13 years old. So officially we're 60 together, I guess you could say. And I'm really loving my life and I'm having so much fun. And I've been through probably more in my one lifetime than most people have in multiple lifetimes. But I'm an old soul, and my coach continues to tell me that I have to go through all the things that my clients go through. And I definitely, as you heard from the bio and dealing with people's subconscious beliefs, I have been through a lot to be able to help navigate people through their own challenges and difficulties. And we're not alone in this. We're not alone. So just remember that for anyone out there who thinks, gosh, look at Rebecca, or, look at Liz, or whoever you're looking at and think that, oh, they have it all together. No, we don't. And I've always had that false belief myself, like everything's going wrong in my life and everything's perfect for this person. And that's not the case. We all have our journey to be on, but we're all in this together.
Yeah, because if we're still learning and growing, of course, it's never going to be the case that because what looks to somebody outside looking in perfect, it really is. And I love that you brought that up and you gave a voice to that, because I think that is a big misconception, particularly when we're dealing with coaching businesses, which are personal brand businesses, because we can go onto Instagram, Facebook, you name it, and see a version that looks amazing. And yet the reality is oftentimes that's just one frame in that person's life, which may have been a disaster before she made the frame and a disaster after. Mm-hmm. We never know. Yeah. So just be you. So I love that. So let's talk more about money, because I know that is something that you are very passionate about, helping women get financially free and financially independent, because with that, that brings all sorts of opportunities. So what money beliefs are you finding that perhaps get in the way of somebody who's starting their own business or has been in business for a while but aren't yet generating that consistent revenue that creates a profitable business?
Well, everyone thinks they're unique, but they're not, right? It's, the I don't deserve, or I'm not worthy, or I'm a fraud, or I'm going to fake it until I make it. Or, I would say one of the biggest misconceptions is people thinking that their money is coming from a person or a job.
Yes.
And when you know that to the God of your understanding is how I say it, that to the God of your understanding, the creator of the universe, God in my world, there's no right or wrong perspective here, that is actually the source of your financial abundance, and that money comes to you through these channels of people, opportunities, and possibilities and circumstances from that one source. Now you're free. So if you're in a job that you're miserable in, or like in my case, I was working behind the scenes of a very affluent company and they weren't handling their money very well. And I walked away from $80,000 because I realized they're not the source of my income. God is. And that when I return back to doing my own business, that the money would come to me through other experiences, opportunities, possibilities, and circumstances and people. And that's exactly what happened. So that makes you less codependent on something outside of you, because what our real journey here on earth is to remember that we are that divinity within ourselves. We are that miraculous within ourselves, regardless of what you believe it. Jesus did say that you can do all these things and more, and he was referring to miracles. And if we realize and remember we are that miracle, and that within us we have a heart resonant field and a frequency, and from that place of feeling what it is that you think is outside of you, getting into that feeling. A lot of people will sit on their meditation cushion and they'll feel it, but it's not 100% authentic, or they'll visualize it, but then they don't understand why it doesn't show up. Or they think, okay, I'm doing all the things with the law of attraction. One thing I would like to share, and I always expose the truth about everything, is that the law of attraction isn't even a law. It was just become popularized by The Secret. So why I call it magnetizing is because that is an actual energetic field that we have on planet Earth and in the universe to be able to tap into and to tune into, and it is within each of us. And when we are connected to that field and we believe with conviction and we declare as creators, co-creators of whatever universe we're creating, because we all are creating our own universe and our own circumstances, that we have the power and the ability to draw those things to us instead of coming from a place of emptiness or lack or scarcity and expecting for that thing to show up from that place. And one of the biggest keys that I will say, regardless of anyone's false beliefs, because that's what the original question that you asked was, all of the different false beliefs that people have. One of the biggest false beliefs that I believe that the law of attraction created for women especially is shame and guilt. Yeah. And what I mean by that is that when you do these measures and you listen to teachers and you listen to people like me or Dr. Wayne Dyer or anyone else for that matter, that are telling you, oh, sit and meditate for 2 minutes or 10 minutes or visualize or journal it out as if it's already happened. I thank you so much, God, for bringing $10,000 into my life by the end of the day through this resource, this person, this opportunity, this circumstance, whatever. And it's not happening. And you feel stuck. The next place that most people go is they turn it around on themselves. It's almost like stabbing yourself in the heart, right?
Yes.
And they say, I must be doing something wrong.
Thank you.
And again, I'm a truth exposer, so this is what I do. That is the biggest lie, one of the biggest lies that has been sold in the law of attraction realm. And it makes me feel so sad for people because I think that a woman's greatest pain is one in indecision, but also in isolation. Yeah. And that's why I share so openly about my trials and tribulations and what it took for me to get here to earn what I call the things that you cannot buy, like resiliency, confidence, fill in the blank. But if you're not manifesting something or magnetizing something to you, it's because it's not on your soul journey. So I believe and come from the place that we all have soul contracts, just like I shared earlier. Yeah. So in spirit form, we sign up for fill in the blank, and then we have these experiences to evolve us into the optimal version that we're supposed to be, that we were humanly designed for. And so when something isn't happening, it could be that you need tweaking and a different technique or a different approach or a different strategy, which is why it's imperative, in my opinion, for everyone to have a mentor and a coach. I've always had at least one coach throughout my entire journey, even preceding starting my business, because it's the number one thing I believe that catapults you forward so quickly. But if it's not something that you're just needing to tweak or do differently or change, or it's a belief structure or what have you, because our neurology is a chemistry, and that creates the magnetism that we then can draw things to. Yeah, there are things you can tweak and do differently from that regard. However, if it is not in your soul path to have your soulmate show up until age 45, then guess what? You might be spending the first 20 years of your life thinking you're doing something wrong because all of your friends are getting married and they're having babies and they have met their soulmate, and you make yourself wrong about it. And it's actually because we need to have a belief that the universe has only better for us on our path. And that if it's not now, it's for a good reason. There is a divine tapestry, and that it's just not necessarily a matter of you doing something wrong, but that you're doing everything right, but it isn't either the right time or it's not going to ever be the right time on this particular soul journey.
And I think, you know, to bring that less into the soul journey and spiritual realm and more and perhaps just into this 3D world we live in. And you mentioned how, you know, if your soulmate isn't supposed to come until you're 45, how people around you and you turn that on yourself. And I think that is the societal conditioning, and that there is one way to live your life. And I know in America, because clearly I'm not American, that, you know, the old 2.5 kids picket fence 1950s lifestyle was really, really pushed. And if you didn't follow that, and I do not have kids. I have picket fences because I've got a horse farm, but that's completely different. Then yes, you do start to question what you're doing, unless you have a resiliency or a mindset. Like, I never wanted to be what I would call normal, so it never bothered me. It didn't bother me that I was traveling the world building people's businesses with and for them, because that's what I felt I was designed to do. But yeah, I can get how you may, and definitely I think if something outside of you isn't happening in the way that you want it to, based on an external want created by society, that can become your own whipping.
Right. And I think we are at this point in our journey on earth that we need to start asking why that agenda is what it is, because it is not for us. They're, you know, the powers that be outside of us that have been running the governments in the world at large for many, probably way too long. We'll just say that. There is an agenda, and it isn't to better your life. It isn't to put tax dollars back in your pocket, so to speak. So being an educated person with critical thinking is 100% required at this point in the journey.
And what you need for your business, in fact. I think that critical thinking, to think for yourself, to add value, to do what you know you're put here to do, to be in alignment, is the best, fastest, quickest way to build your business. And so if we think about it from that perspective, I know you like to talk about what you term money leaks. So can you expand upon what a money leak, I'm saying the word leak, bad action,
yes, totally,
is, and how that can be hidden from you in building your business?
Definitely. Yeah. So I talk about the archetypes in entrepreneurship. There's the always broke entrepreneur, there's the leaky bucket entrepreneur, and then there's the masterful entrepreneur. And it doesn't mean that the masterful entrepreneur doesn't have money leaks. We all need to take an inventory at different points in times in our lives. And that, again, is where having mentorship and coaching comes into play, or even mastermind partners. You know, years ago in 2017, I had hired a marketing company, and I had spent a good 6 figures marketing some of my courses that I sell. And it wasn't until one of my very dear friends and mastermind partners had said, you know, Rebecca, it seems like they're overcomplicating things and you're spending a lot of money. And I took a step back from my business. And I think it's really imperative. Sometimes we need to do that. And it's important to be able to have money in the bank to have the freedom to do that. This is a tough journey as an entrepreneur. It's not like you get to just show up at a job, and it requires a lot of creativity. And I've been through a lot during my entrepreneurial journey. I've been through 2 divorces. I've been through 2 moves. I've raised 2 children. I mean, there have been plenty of times where I've dealt with a lot of emotional turbulence and unpredictable things that have occurred. And I have had the luxury and the ability and the faith, because I'm not saying I always had the money in the bank, okay? Not every single time, but I had the faith to trust and know that if this is something that I'm meant to go through, and it's going to evolve me as a woman, as a business owner, and as a mother, that I would be provided for.
Yeah.
And so those are the times where we do have to take a look. And I think this is something, you know, for years I've done what I call Financial Fridays. And so just being practical and tracking things and knowing exactly what your expenses are in a spreadsheet for your personal life and your business life. And so in 2017, I took a step back and I took a couple months off, and then I decided to go behind the scenes of another 6, 7, or let's see, I think at the time they were a $5 million coaching company, and do sales, because I could show up and do what I needed to do. But then it also gave me time to reflect and review and look at, well, what worked and what didn't work. And I also came to the conclusion at that time that in order to amplify, we have to simplify.
Yes, I love that.
And so by simplifying, and there are apps for this now too. I've never needed to use them. I'm definitely much more of a paper and pencil kind of girl still, even till today. But looking at, do I have a membership to something that I'm not using? And I don't care if it's $5 and you are making $3 million a year. It's still a money leak. Do you really need a VA? I would say, you know, I teach a lot about delegation, because the way that I approach my business coaching is by looking at your business as what I call your healthy business ecosystem. And there are 4 quadrants of this, and 80% of it is how you think and how you talk. And then it's also about delegation and sales and money. And so if any of those quadrants have what I would call a contaminant in your environment, then your healthy business ecosystem is not going to be so healthy. So taking the time to look at, you know, sales? Am I closing at the rate that I'm supposed to be closing at? Do I have a downsell offer? Do I have a net to catch people in who might not be ready for my $4,000 offer or my $10,000 offer, or fill in the blank? I want, and not coming from a place of, I want to make more money, coming from a place of, I have the ability to help this person, and I don't want to send someone walking away who is a yes to wanting to work with me. So that most of the time is a huge money leak. I always say the fortune is in the follow-up. That is a huge money leak, probably the biggest one that I see in the world of coaching. Yeah. People do not have consistency. They do not have a follow-up protocol for reaching out to people and following up with people, or they give up after a while. One of my favorite stories is one of the women that I was behind the scenes of her coaching company for. Prior to running her coaching company, she was a psychotherapist. And I said to her at one point, I said, at what point would you stop following up with someone? Because I don't think this is a question that actually most people are thinking to ask or even know the answer to in the coaching industry. Yeah. And so she said never. And I was like, oh, good Lord, I have a lot more work to do. And but the story that she told to me made me cry, and sometimes it still makes me cry. So if I cry, don't get alarmed. But she said that when she was a psychotherapist, this one woman was in a really horrible marriage, and she wanted her husband to come to her for marriage counseling to save their marriage, and the husband refused to do so. Yeah. And my mentor called this woman every week, and the woman never picked up. And she would leave a message and just leave some kind of an encouraging message and just letting her know, I'm here when you're ready, essentially holding the vision for her. And that's a really important thing for coaches to do. I had one of my very first coaches tell me, we always need to see the highest and best in every person. And especially during that sales call, when people have excuses or doubts that come up, or they think, I can't do this, I don't have the money. And like, I'm not buying into your lies that you're telling to yourself. I'm not. I'm going to hold you in the highest and best vision and version of yourself. 100%. And so what happened after a year, so 52 calls to this woman from my mentor, finally, a year later, this woman answered, and my mentor almost fell off her chair. She couldn't even believe the woman finally answered. And guess what? The woman said her husband finally agreed to come see her for marriage therapy. Wow. And it saved their marriage. And she said, the only hope that I had during this entire year was hearing from you each week that this could possibly work.
I love that. I love that.
So the fortune is in the follow-up. Yeah. So it's all about doing an inventory, and numbers don't lie. That's why I love math. I've always loved math. I've always been great at math. Profit and loss statements, projected income, projected expenses, and then actual expenses. So really having a great relationship with your money is a requirement to be a successful entrepreneur.
Yes, because we're running businesses, and businesses require that. Otherwise, you're not having a business. I find that to be quite something that a lot of people don't understand, because even starting out, you should have a 90-day projection of the revenue or the income you're going to be creating, even if it's just the intention, because that's what drives you. So I love that you covered that. I love that you spoke into that. And I guess if we don't have that, that is a money leak, because then we have no idea what the numbers are. It's just random and guesswork. And so let's go one more step. Let's say we've plugged all of our money leaks, and I'm not convinced I ever will, but let's just pretend. And now I want to turn my magnetism on. I want to attract the money to us. You started off by saying law of attraction isn't actually a law, magnetization is, and I get that because we've got evidence, science proves that, backs it up. Tell me more. How can I magnetize and bring money to me?
Well, I mean, one of the good steps is what we just talked about, right? Like paying attention to your money. Yes. And also paying attention to any of the money leaks that you have. And so a lot of women have very tainted or tarnished relationships with their money. I know that I did. So I had to do a lot of work in that department. When I was a young kid, I think I was maybe 10 or 11. I started working when I was 10, babysitting and then I was like illegally being a hostess in a restaurant at one point. So I've always been working from a very young age.
Yeah.
And I remember going into a bank with my parents to open up my own account. And at the time I was a kid, I'm like 11 or 12 or something. And I put maybe like under $20 in the bank or something. And then I went to go back and take that money out at one point and it was gone. And so everyone can think back to their very first experience with money and the imprint that they left on it. And so what did I think? I thought, well, if I give the banks money,
they take it.
It's not going to work to my benefit, right? So I might as well use credit cards and take the money from the bank. And that did not serve me well. Well, it served me well in the form of lessons and learning, of course. But so what is your relationship with money like? Because, I love the concept of dating and marriage and relationships. Same thing with sales and with money. I just, even in dating, it's like I've always said, like, I'll meet a guy for a coffee, a walk, or a drink. And I've had a lot of guys say, well, why won't you go out with me for dinner? And I said, because I want to take the car for a test drive first.
100%.
So my point is, before I know I want to buy the car, right?
Yeah,
so my point is but like, what is that relationship like? So you need to have a good relationship with yourself.
Yes.
Your self-talk cannot be in the toilet. Yep. If you think you're going to magnetize something towards you and then you're going to treat yourself like crap. So if you haven't forgiven yourself, we're great at showing up for everyone else. Yes. And I'll speak for myself on this because these have been huge pain points for me, and sometimes they still are. I'm great at forgiving other people or looking at, I firmly believe our greatest adversaries are our greatest mentors. Yes. And from that, we can move into a space of gratitude for them. But how often are we taking the time to love ourselves and talk to ourselves the way that we would talk to our children or our animals, our horses, like whatever? And then just really paying attention to, are you ignoring your money? What we were just talking about with the money leaks. Do you have Financial Friday? Are you paying attention? Are you really tracking your business expenses and your profit and loss statements or your projections of the money? And do you have a love? Because it really is a relationship with money. Mm-hmm. And so all of these blocks that we have are essentially just clouding up that pureness, that magnetic force. Mm-hmm. And so if you think about the magnetic force that we have within us, to bring things to us through believing and knowing and acting as if we already have those things, new clients or a program sold out or a retreat sold out or fill in the blank, it's going to be very difficult because that purity is now clouded because you've got those money leaks going on. And you've got those false beliefs about I don't deserve or fill in the blank. And it is really about reprogramming your neurochemical ways of operating in your brain. And I would say 80% of the time, if you really got honest with yourself, you'd be thinking, what we talked about earlier. Am I living someone else's dream? Mm-hmm. Am I living the dream that was sold to me because someone else has had an agenda about it? Am I really talking to myself in positive ways? And if you take a look and do an inventory often, you'll be able to reprogram these beliefs. But if you think about, even something as simple as how do I spend a particular holiday? Yeah. Am I doing this tradition because that's what I grew up doing? Or have I brought consciousness to the situation and decided, you know what? I don't really want to be around anybody on Mother's Day. I want to go to the spa. So really living your life from that place of authenticity and what's true for you instead of according to someone else's definition or feeling like, oh, I've got to do people pleasing. And I'm not saying that we don't do certain things at certain times because we love someone and we're negotiating, like if someone's in a marriage and their husband loves to watch sports, like they're going to sit and maybe watch sports or host a Super Bowl party in America or something like that. When they're like, oh, if only I could just watch, Firefly Lane or something like that.
Exactly. Oh, I love that because yes, it all ties back together, right? Because what you feel about yourself is what the world's going to be that's the hidden energy. That's the magnetization. So you cannot, I have a saying in my business, you can't outperform your thoughts. You can't outperform the way that you're talking to yourself. So if you don't believe you can, you're 100% right. If you believe you can, then sign up for some discomfort, because learning a new skill is just uncomfortable. And even learning and unlearning is uncomfortable, because like you alluded to, if you're conforming to societal standards and, you know, Mother's Day, you're going to go to the spa, you've got to feel good about yourself to make those decisions and be willing to stay in alignment with what you value. So I love that. So I'm conscious of time, even though I could keep talking to you for hours and hours and hours, but I know you've got a really cool gift that you're going to give everybody. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I recorded, it's called Miracle Money Mastery Meditation. There are 108 affirmations, and I collaborated with an amazing sound healer named Andrea Wenger. In fact, she just came here and did a sound healing in my new house for Christmas. That was one of my gifts to myself. And it is extremely powerful. It is definitely geared towards coaches, but it is helpful for everyone to reprogram their mind. It's something that you can listen to while you're sleeping, if that's something that you feel comfortable doing, or just laying down in meditation for 30 minutes and really absorbing the words that are spoken along with the sound healing. And it has had a profound effect over many years for so many people to get radical transformation quickly. So I'm excited to share it with everyone.
I love that. So everybody, down below are all of Rebecca's connection and contact points, as well as this free gift. So make sure to grab it, because I think that you can all give yourself the gift of sound with beautiful affirmations, because you never know where that can take you, really. It's the reprogramming. It starts that. So my final question for you today, if you'd be so kind, what could you leave our viewers with that, you know, if they went off and did in the next 24 to 48 hours, could help them and move their business forward? What would that be?
Good question. So I think when we think about business, we think about marketing and strategy and sales. And as I've said, I've been behind the scenes of many 6, 7, and 8 and 9-figure businesses at this point. And I do lots of one-on-one coaching and group coaching and stuff like that. And one theme that continues to prevail, and that is that the majority of the work is a lot of what we've been talking about here. And so, like I said earlier, if your self-talk is in the toilet, there's no amount of manifesting or magnetizing over that crappy self-talk that you're going to be able to do to a certain degree. The fastest way to identify your false beliefs is to pay attention to your language. And there's actually a book called Conscious Language that was a very profound book for me many years ago. I would encourage everyone to just be in that observer mode with no judgment over the next 24 to 48 hours. Have a notebook that you write things down with, and pay attention. You know, it could be something as simple as like you're trying to get a landing page together, or you're coaching a client and you hear a voice that's like, "You idiot, how could you do that?"
Yes.
Or "You're such a bad mother," or fill in the blank. Write those statements down, because those are the 60,000 thoughts that are the tapes that are playing inside of your mind every single day. And that's what's clouding your magnetism, your purity.
Yeah. I think that is the most valuable task you could get somebody to do, because sometimes we're oblivious to what we think, and that is in fact the issue. Not your strategy, not your tactics, not even your plan. It's actually the fact that you're talking to yourself in a way that typically you wouldn't talk to your worst enemy. So tune in and see what you're saying. I love that, Rebecca. Any final thoughts before we wrap this on up?
Just, you know, it's a journey, and let yourself be where you are on the journey, and don't compare yourself to anyone else. And the greatest gifts, in my opinion, are the ones that you earn and cannot buy. And we do that through going through difficult situations and learning and becoming more resilient and more confident. And in the moment, it feels horrible. Reach out for support. You're not alone, and we're all in this together.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in for this one. And I will catch you in the next. Bye.